morning, Rabbi Burton.
Good morning, Angelique.
The following question came in, and it was who was the first Jew and why does it matter? We have the confusing about some people say Abraham was the first Jew, and others say no, he was still a Noahide. And also we have the discussion with Moses. He wasn't a Jew just after Sinai, but does it really matter who was the first Jew?
I think that all sides of what you just said are correct, that humanity as a whole were B'nai Noach, including the people that would eventually become the Jewish people before the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. Everybody was, technically speaking, a Ben Noach. But I think Abraham is considered the first Jew, not by ethnicity, but by covenant. If you look in the chapter in Genesis, chapter 17, we see a very specific type of relationship that he enters into with Hashem. What he did was he pioneered faith in one God and he taught others. We see that in the Gemara, in Avodah Zarah. And his story really marks the beginning of a unique mission, which is separate from, but it's still connected to Noahide history. And the reason why it matters is because it's a different type of path than would have been taken by the rest of the world at the time. It sets the tone for what becomes the Jewish nation.
So when Noahide said, Avram is doing this or that, and uh, that's more a Jewish way of following the Torah, you cannot say because they say he was still a Noahide, we can also do that kind of work, so to speak, for Hashem, because in fact he was the first Jew, so to speak, and is going to be on a different path. We have to make distinction between what Abraham did and what Noahites can copy from him.
I think it's a bit of a fallacy to think that Abraham was a Noahide in the sense of you can now emulate everything that Abraham did because he was a Noahide. Abraham is held up as a template of what eventually the Jewish nation would be obligated in. So, for example, circumcision. The Jews don't perform circumcision because Abraham performed circumcision, even though the template role model of circumcision goes back to Abraham. We're obligated in circumcision because of what is stated at the time of the giving of the Torah. So even though, let's say, Noahides could circumcise themselves, just like Abraham circumcised himself, they're not obligated to do so because Abraham did so. The Jews are obligated to do so. And the pretext for it is Abraham. So that would be one example. But when it comes to anything else that we see done in the life of Abraham, we know that the patriarchs kept the entire Torah. That's a teaching that we have in the oral law. But they did so voluntarily. The idea of things becoming obligatory is an effect of the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. And we have very clear guidelines as to what applies to B'nai Noach and what applies to Jews.
And when you say they kept it all voluntarily, so that still doesn't make Noahites uh, allowed to keep Shabbos because Abraham did keep Shabbos on a voluntary base.
Exactly. Exactly. In other words, once the Torah is given, that which is obligatory for Noahides and as opposed to what's obligatory for Jews is very, very clear and delineated. It's not something that's up for grabs. You can't just keep Shabbat because of an idea that the patriarchs, who were considered, again, they were considered, let's say, ethnically B'nai Noach at the time. But the path that they were on was different. The path that they were on would be the path that would be taken up by their descendants. It's a different covenant.
So thank you for your answer.
Pleasure.